You're listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series.
Welcome to the microphone and welcome to the studio, Supreme Court Judge David Ashton Lewis.
Well, thank you for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to speak.
Well, the commentary from last week was that you were all fired up about cancel culture and wokeist.
I knew the week before they spoke about me being quite fired up, but was it the same for last week?
Well, look, I think it was a great topic and it was well worth being fired up because, again, it seems to be the way of the world. And again, I really worry about moving into that. I don't ever want to be dubbed as the conspiracy theorist. But again, I do want to point out that there are things that have changed from, and again, we talked about then and now and a few other bits and pieces along the way. Then, I'm going to go back to my then. I could rely upon the news, whether it be print news or television news or radio news, to deliver me the facts, and I would formulate my own opinion. Nowadays, that's very different, David.
Well, it is. What happens now is the truth, so-called, is delivered to you, and if you take the view that I don't agree with that, or I don't know that it's right, you then get labelled one thing or the other. And I think we have to think about our language again, the language we use. And I think, as we spoke last week about cancel culture, we have to think about people's lives.
Let's break that down, David, because that was a very important point. We do need to think about our language, and it's very easy to morph something into something completely different by using either softening language or different language. And we don't truly understand what the meaning behind that language may be. Example, in my 80s, 70s, after World War II, the extremes of left and right wing were fascism and socialism.
Yes.
Nowadays, David, what are they?
Well, now they are whatever a listener says, oh, you've offended me, or oh, you're a fascist, oh, you're a progressive.
Okay, so there's the two terms I was looking for. There is labelling, and the softening is progressive. Now, of course, I'd love to be progressive. Doesn't that sound nice? You'd love to be progressive, David, wouldn't you?
Aren't we all progressive?
But don't you also want to be conservative? And at times I would like to be conservative. I don't really subscribe to that idea. I want to be careful about it. I want to test and measure as we go because I'm not sure. Yes. So both sides of the fence are right, but we've now gone from fascism and socialism, which were very dirty words way back when.
And clearly observable.
Correct.
We had seen 13 years of Nazism, which is fascism.
Yes.
And we had lived from 1917 to 1990 with socialism.
Yeah, USSR, and it broke down, didn't it?
All of them. Where's Nazism today?
Gone.
Where's socialism today? It's not necessarily in states today. Nazism is in an individual who gets called by someone who doesn't like what they're saying, oh, you're a Nazi.
Yes.
And it's terrible. We really have to think about how we use language.
Again, and as we pointed out last week, you don't like what I'm saying, you're a racist.
Yes.
And again, I don't want to be labelled something absolutely obscene, so you stop and you take a second and think, hang on a minute, maybe I need to check what's coming out of my mouth. But that's just how we're going to defend ourselves.
Well, we are seeing it. Any person... Well, this doesn't happen, all do it, but anyone who says, look, I agree, I think we really need to look at the level of immigration into the country.
And we do.
And we do, but to one thought school is you're a racist. How can you be a racist?
Again, let's just break this down.
Yes.
We don't have enough housing for the current population we have. So doesn't it beg the logic, doesn't it sit there and conclude, let's pause immigration right now while we solve the problem of housing. Once we've got that under control, then we can open up the doors again.
Now
that's just pure logic.
That is the logical and, in my view, correct view. But who's taking that view now? Governments seem to be deaf to it. There was just on 1 million people marched in London a week ago. and they marched against uncontrolled immigration. Well, that all of a sudden turned into these people were right-wing fascists who are racists. And you want to say, for heaven's sake.
It's almost just smear them with mud. Absolutely smear them with mud, and people will take no notice of them whatsoever.
Now, I was no great supporter of giving a Palestinian state. It had been tried in 1993, 2001 and 2011, and it never took off. I thought, oh, please, Anthony, make sure that you have the whole country with you on this one. I know Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron and Germany had this view, but the United States didn't. Well, Anthony Albanese went, and I heard his speech in the UN, and it was excellent. And he, and I understand the French have agreed, and the English, that yes, we will support the creation of the Palestinian state. Hamas is to have no part in it. Hamas is to give up its weaponry, and there does need to be these two states, and the security of each guaranteed. Now, those are lovely words, and I think they are right words. Now, they then brought out Mahmoud Abbas. Now, he's been around since the days of 2000, and he's had the offer put to him, and he has simply not followed through on it. But he's now coming out and saying, yes, we disarm Hamas, we make sure they have no place in a future government of Gaza or the West Bank and Palestine. Now, what can you say to that other than good? Now do it.
And that is the key, because whether it's Hamas or whether they reinvent themselves under another name, there is no room for it at all in a Palestinian state if you want to survive. I'm going to rewind you for a second, David, because I love this bit, and it comes back down to a Cicero statement.
Oh, yes.
So we've tried this. You stated it. We have tried this in the past, a Palestinian state. Why did it fail?
Because the Palestinian side, they may have been honest, but the leadership of the Palestinians shook hands with the then Prime Minister in Oslo in 1993, and these people were they were former leaders of terrorists, or the PLO, terrorist. Sure. And Hamas is just
good old Yasser Arafat.
Yeah, Yasser was one of the great purveyors of this, shaking hands and agreeing with it. And then when they got back down a week later, they didn't follow through on any of it. Sure. But it's amazing how the blame was always put on Israel. And then I think weak-willed Western governments bought that line. Well, I think I saw in Anthony Albanese, because I don't think he's a liar, I think he is a good Prime Minister, and he made it clear, Hamas, no, finished. Hamas give up its arms. Hamas will have no part in a Palestinian government. So that then the next question is, can you assure that? As you just mentioned, Hamas might form in another name, because the danger is with those who don't agree with this, and Hamas is one of them, it in its charter has made it quite clear, we will never agree to the creation of a Jewish state, and we will never give up our arms, and we will always fight for the destruction of a Jewish state. So that means, all right, Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian leadership, now tell us what you're going to do in disarming Hamas, keeping them out of government. Now, guess what? I'll bet you my bottom dollar it will come down to, we need Western governments' help with that. Now, I'm very happy if UK, France, Germany, US, even Australia say, yes, we will help you. But look, the main driver comes from, in Gaza, the Gazans saying, for heaven's sake, Hamas, you have caused us so much trouble. Go.
Yes.
Go like who was it? Like what Churchill said to Chamberlain, and it was the words that we used in the days of Oliver Cromwell, said to Charles I, "Go, sir, for God's sake, go." Churchill just took them up again, and really the Gazans, the Palestinians, hopefully will say, we've had enough. We will never defeat the Israelis, and the West will make sure they will never be defeated. Isn't it sensible to have peace with them?
And I think if we go back down to it, and I'll make this statement, is we're not here to be adversarial. We're not here to stir up concerns or worries. This is about peace. And again, Australia popping its head up and the rest of the world popping its head up is saying, do you know what? We've had enough of you guys bashing each other up.
Oh, yes.
It is time for people to get on with their lives and for sanity to prevail. And again, I'm going to pivot the conversation to culture and community, because I'm noticing that there is a rise of neo-Nazism in Australia, as well as those negative seeds, and they seem to be more of them in the last 10 years than they have been in the previous 10 or 20 years. David, would you concede that?
Yes, I agree with you, and I think one of the problems when people fail to meet, and I can give you a good example now, wokeism. Wokeism has aided the separation of people in their own country. And it happened in the United States in the 1850s. All you need to do is read the congressional papers of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and you can see from 1849, by 1860, the rift is so wide, the only way to resolve it was through violence, and it was called the Civil War. And when people who've tried to be peaceful have tried, and they might be blaming each other, oh, you caused it. No, you caused it. If you keep going down that road, then all you're doing is widening a gap. So it does need support on both sides to say, come on, stop it.
Yes.
And that doesn't appear to be happening. If you look domestically in the United States, it's not happening again. I see great parallels with societal dislocation today in our developed societies over immigration and all the matters, as you say, not enough housing. So why on earth are you bringing more people into a place if you can't house them? But I use the word, I can see dislocation getting wider and wider. And if we don't have the sense to stop it, we'll end up like the Middle East, who have been hunting and shooting and killing each other since the end of the Second World War.
And I think that's a good point. When people are happy, they're happy in their lives.
Yes.
They can get ahead. They don't feel the pressure of, I off to work I go. And the big pressures here in Australia today are power prices, housing, and then cost of living and crime. So those things just need to be resolved.
They do.
Medical care ramping is another bigger issue. And again, we can go down to the minutiae and say a great portion of Australia has moved to the Gold Coast since COVID, and unfortunately the infrastructure hasn't caught up.
Now, some people,
but the shame of that is
I apologise.
We just need to devote resources to that.
Well, some people will say, and we shouldn't be spending $349 billion on submarines. Another person will say, I'm glad we are, because it's our future defence. Now, when you get in society two totally different views, the trick is not to give in to one or the other. The responsible governmental role is to say, let's give you enough information to bring you together. Defence is important.
Very much so.
And given the rise of China and everything in the world, the geopolitics today, but we agree that there's got to be far more put into cost of living, housing, health, education.
Sure.
Now, we're not going to drop one to just do the other. We're going to find the way to do both. So help us. Rather than polarising and dislocating, you mightn't agree with AUKUS, so find a way to find common ground with a person who does agree with it.
Look, I think the best way to put it is you may not agree with the government's view, agree with the world order at this point in time. The best way to look at it, and it has been here for a very long time, is the way the rest of the world view us. We are 25 million people with an exorbitant amount of land that is underutilised.
Yes.
And most of the countries around the rest of the world are basically living on top of each other. So we are very attractive to other countries. So we do need to have that line that says, don't come and poke us.
Well, I think we do, but you just raised the very valid point. We have virtually every known mineral in the world. We are 27 million, with it mainly living down on one coast, the East Coast. So what policy and what thought is being given to look at the United States? It's settled right across it.
Sure.
The great open land states of the Midwest, the East, the West. What should we, if we should be, and I think we should, how do we open up the vastness of Australia to development and to everyone, not just digging minerals out of the ground?
And and as much as that is a good short-term solution, if we're not making something with those minerals and then saying to the rest of the world, here it is, buy it, it's just sheer madness. Once the minerals run out, what have we got?
Well, but the difficulty is, I'll give you an example. When I was an 18-year-old, I finished year 12, and before my first year at university in 1968, I wanted to buy a TFMG. And the cost of a TFMG was an exorbitant amount. It was $750. And I wanted to go and work up in the north of Western Australia to get that money, because you work 7 days a week from 5 in the morning till 5 at night and were paid really well. And so I went up and worked there, and it struck me, the vastness, until I was told by two geologists, there is enough iron ore in the Hamersley Ranges, and that's a 200-mile range. There's enough to provide the world's needs in iron ore for the next 1,000 years.
Amazing, isn't it?
And I'm sure we've got gold to that. I'm sure we've got uranium to that. Now, not that you don't want other countries to produce it, but I had an American geologist say, you Aussies could power the world with coal, with uranium.
With all of those
and we
things.
didn't have a lot of oil then. Well, we now have oil off the Northwest Shelf. So I think what there's got to be is an understanding that we do have this space, we do have this wealth, and it has to be shared.
I agree. Look, these conversations that we're having are not to utilise what's going on out there in the mainstream media. It's not about who's to blame. It's not about who can we point fingers at. This is to stimulate thinking. This is about ideas. And again, we can look back and go, well, we made a wrong turn here. We did the wrong thing here. So-and-so did that. So-and-so did that. We're actually here now. There's no point in going back and pointing fingers. The point now is, how do we solve the problems? It is everybody's problem here.
Yes,
and in fact, as you and I pass away, David, we're going to hand it on to the next generation and the generation after that.
And to break everything down into, your right wing or your left wing is infantile.
Yeah. The two things that drive me insane is who's to blame and should the government be doing more? Drives me insane, and that is mainstream media.
Yeah.
Because realistically, the government can only do so much, and they're there, and I say this often enough, to manage the country on our behalf.
And if we're dumb, if we're as dumb as dirt, then we'll elect a dumb dirt government. If we become thinking and not polarised in factions, right or left, but become thinking about Australia, its role and place in the world, and mainly what can it do to help. We're just one continent out of 5, 6 continents, and we are one continent in a blessed position on this planet with, we've just gone through, its wealth. So not to hoard it for ourselves, but not to waste it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
David Ashton Lewis, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you again, Cole. Thank you once again.
You've been listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series. Support local online content and become a financial supporter today at 4crb.com.